We all remember that scene that made us think that the Kazuka, that is, Katara x Zuko ship, was setting sail. In the final episode of the Book of Earth, Zuko is thrown in prison with Katara. After some talking, Katara begins to believe Zuko to be as much a victim as anyone else, and she is about to heal the scar on his eye with the spirit water. But before she does, Team Avatar arrives. It's at around this time that Azula appears and offers Zuko the one thing he has always desired: his honor. In the end, his weakness and inability to let go of his own desires forces him to accept her offer, and the two of them face off against Aang and Katara. Aang enters his avatar state to fight against them, but is wounded in the back by Azula's lightning and falls to the ground dying. Uncle Iroh steps in between his niece and nephew to protect Katara and Aang as they get away. And while escaping on Appa's back, she uses this spirit water to heal and revive Aang. Unable to reach the avatar state but alive, the story continues as you know. But a question that has crossed all of our minds as we watch this episode was a simple one. What if Aang really had died? What would have happened then? Well, I hope to answer this question today with logic as well as a healthy amount of headcanon. So make sure to grab your cactus juice as we quench your thirst for answers with the quenchiest of what-ifs. I'm Jeremy, and this is What If Azula Killed Aang? So, our what-if starts in a very familiar way. Katara and Zuko are in prison, and Zuko is spilling his life story and identifying with her. She offers to heal his scar. This is the divergence point. For our purposes today, we'll say that Team Avatar took longer than expected to find them, and Katara actually went through with it. She would have expended that miracle juice to take away Zuko's scar, and then they are found by Team Avatar. After this, everything goes the same. Azula convinces Zuko to join her, Aang faces off against Zuko and Azula, and Katara faces off against the agents of the Dai Li. Aang ends up struck in the back by Azula's lightning and falls. Iroh appears to defend Aang and Katara as they escape and is captured by the Fire Nation. Aang and Katara escape on Appa. Aang is wounded but can't be healed. Katara realizes that if she had the spirit water, she could have healed him, but she already used it on Zuko. It was this moment when the world needed the Avatar most and he has vanished, and it was her fault. Now, to pull out of our little story for a second, I need to explain this to you right quick. Now, most fans of Avatar know this, but for those who either didn't or don't remember, when an Avatar is killed while using the Avatar state, it ends the Avatar reincarnation cycle. If Aang had been killed normally here, he would have reincarnated into his next life as a certain waterbending girl with a pet polar bear dog. But this wasn't a normal death. Aang had been killed in the Avatar state, meaning that he cannot reincarnate ever again. The Avatar is lost to the world forever. This will upset a lot in the world of Avatar, but for the sake of this story, we'll focus on just Avatar: The Last Airbender. Depending on how it floats over, we may continue into the Legend of Korra's era with a part 2, but for now, we're just going to focus on The Last Airbender. The story picks up on a stolen Fire Nation warship. Sokka and Katara are reunited with their father, Hakoda. Despite Aang's death, as well as the dethroning of the Earth King, it is still paramount that they plan for the Day of Black Sun. Hope has dwindled to a minimum, but they still plan to try. If they do nothing, then the Fire Nation's rule of the Earth will go uncontested, and the world will fall under the tyranny of a cruel dictatorship. Jumping to said dictatorship, Zuko and Azula return home. As usual, Zuko has butterflies due to not seeing his father in a long time. Zuko is welcomed by his father, who notes Zuko's lack of a scar, as well as the death of the Avatar, to be the symbolism of his regaining of honor. Zuko realizes that he has been credited with killing the Avatar, which is unlike Azula to allow, considering that she was the one who killed him. Zuko's distrust of Azula causes him to believe that she is using him for her own purposes, which she denies. Iroh, in the meantime, begins intensively training and building strength in anticipation of escape. We also get the beach day episode, and none of that changes really. They still trash the house. Kids will be kids, you know? After this, Zuko learns the truth that Avatar Roku was his own great-grandfather, which means he helped to kill his own family member's reincarnation. Iroh says that this symbolizes the battle within Zuko's heart to restore balance as well. Zuko's lack of comfort continues to increase with his paranoia brought on by distrust of Azula. He is seated next to his father and sister during the war meeting, but he doesn't feel like himself. He leaves a letter for May and spills his heart to his mother's portrait and decides to finally choose the side his heart has been leading him to all along. He grabs his swords and sets out to confront Ozai. Meanwhile, what is left of Team Avatar, let's call it Team Sokka now, just because Sokka deserves more respect. Meanwhile, Team Sokka reunites with all those they had helped in the previous seasons and begins their invasion, hoping that the Day of Black Sun will give them the opportunity they need to end the Fire Lord's reign and defeat the Fire Nation. They fight to the capital city, but it is abandoned. As it turns out, Azula already knew of the plan, and so the Fire Lord had been moved. They seek Ozai in a hidden bunker, but find only Azula, who stalls them until the end of the eclipse. Zuko engages his father, but during this time, he is told the story of what happened to his mother, which stalls him long enough for the eclipse to end. Ozai attacks his son, but Zuko escapes. He steals an airship and follows Team Sokka, who escape. Realizing that their plan had failed and that their father and the rest of the resistance were captured, Team Sokka falls into hopelessness. Zuko eventually arrives on the scene to help, but is completely turned down by the group. Katara blames him for Aang's death, as do the others. Zuko admits that if he had been stronger that day and done the right thing, maybe things would be different now. Perhaps they could have ended the 100-Year War on the Day of Black Sun if only he had, like Iroh, chosen to stand for what he knew was right, instead of what he wanted to do personally. The team, however, still do not trust him and even go so far as to attack him in retribution for what happened to Aang, but Zuko escapes. Now this is where we reach an issue. Realistically, Zuko joining the group at this juncture is a near impossibility, but for the sake of the story, we'll do something to get him on. Despite Katara having used up the spirit water on his eye, we'll say that Zuko assumed that she had more and still hires Combustion Man to hunt Team Sokka, despite Aang having been dead. So now we'll say that Combustion Man finds them, and Zuko appears to selflessly help them and protect them. Combustion Man ends up defeated due to the help of Zuko, and the affection that Appa shows toward him, as well as Toph's insistence that they literally have nothing to lose, convinces everyone to allow Zuko onto Team Sokka. After discussing the coming of Sozin's Comet, as well as Zuko's connection to Avatar Roku by 3 generations, they begin to form New Hope, believing that they can instead use the comet at the end of the summer as a benefit to them instead of a time constraint. They decide to place their faith in Zuko and consider him to be the spiritual successor to Aang. Katara is still hesitant to trust him though, and continues to seethe in anger, which Sokka understands, but reminds her that he currently is their last and final hope to stop the Fire Nation, and essentially tells her to suck it up until the end of the war. But it's not long that Zuko finds that he has lost his ability to firebend, which causes the team to lose hope once more. Roller coaster, am I right? Toph suggests that they should instead look to the originators of firebending in hopes that they will be able to help Zuko find something else to fuel his fire besides the rage he has relied on. She tells them a story on how she learned to earthbend from badger moles who were blind like she was. Zuko tells them that dragons were believed to be the originators of firebending, but that they all died out. Unable to think of anything else, Zuko decides he wants to search for the ruins of the Sun Warriors to learn more about the history of firebending, in hopes that this will help him regain the fire in his belly, which has seemingly gone out. They travel to the Sun Warrior ruins. Toph, with her earth sensing, manages to discover traps in the ruins and begins to point out where they are, and helps Team Sokka avoid it. They come across a mural of a Sun Warrior facing 2 dragons. Sokka thinks it's awesome and begins to really want to see a dragon himself, but Zuko crushes this dream by saying it was a long-standing tradition in the Fire Nation to hunt dragons and that they all died, with the last surviving one having been killed by Iroh, the last bearer of the title dragon. They explore the ruins and find a massive locked door. They manage to fool the gem thingy by reflecting light onto it and enter the ruins. They are confronted by the Sun Warriors, who are shown to have survived. They task Zuko with taking some of the first fire up to the firebending masters, Ran and Shaw. From here, Zuko learns the truth behind firebending and finds his power restored. Then after this, the Boiling Rock 2-parter happens, but nothing changes in it essentially, so there's no need to go deep into it. The next episode begins when the Fire Nation war balloons attack the group. Zuko attempts to hold Azula off while the others escape, but they refuse to do so as Zuko is currently their only hope. While Zuko manages to fight on even grounds with Azula, he is aided by the others and manages to defeat her. She attempts a surprise attack on Zuko, but Katara's reflexes catch her before she can, and she strikes the princess, knocking her from the ship. Azula falls through the mist to her death. The team manages to escape from the fleet, Katara realizes what she did and wonders how Zuko is taking it. Zuko seems to be unaffected by it, stating that she always was evil from the day he met her. But deep down, Zuko truly hurts as, despite her having been evil to the core, he did care for her. They escape to Ember Island where they stay at the Fire Lord's beach house. Katara manages to find Zuko outside crying and begins to feel bad. She begins to realize that she took his sister just as the Fire Nation took her mother, and finally decides to trust Zuko and forgive him for what he did in betraying her trust at Ba Sing Se. Later, Zuko speaks with them, mentioning how if he could barely defeat Azula by himself, he has no chance at beating Ozai, and states that the only person he thinks could do it would be Iroh, so they search for Iroh with the help of June. They eventually find themselves with the Order of the White Lotus, which is run by Iroh, with its main members being King Bumi, Zhang, Master Pakku, and Master Pian Dao, with Iroh serving as their Grand Master. Meanwhile, at the palace, Ozai is infuriated with the death of his daughter at Zuko's hands and curses that he no longer has an heir to the throne. Zuko apologizes to Iroh and begs his forgiveness, only to be immediately forgiven before he can even get the words out of his mouth. He asks Iroh to fight Ozai, and Iroh states that he is not sure he can beat him. He states that his time has come and gone, and now it is Zuko's turn. He says that as Zuko is the great-grandson of Avatar Roku, that the Avatar's duty falls to him, and that he must make things right. He states that he has reclaimed his own honor in defying his father, and must now reclaim the Fire Nations in defeating him too. Zuko hesitantly agrees. He realizes that if it had not been for him, Aang would still be here, and they would have had a better chance. He also knows that his uncle is correct in stating that it is now his responsibility. Zuko is not only responsible for the Avatar's death, but is also the descendant of the Avatar, and thus his duty is clear. It's decided that Zuko will face his father in battle while Katara, Toph, Suki, and Sokka deal with the airships. While they are doing this, Iroh plans to lead the Order of the White Lotus to Ba Sing Se, where they will recapture the city. At this time, Sozin's comet arrives and Ozai makes preparations to use it to destroy the Earth Kingdom once and for all, as to stop them from rising up against him and contesting his rule of the world in the future. Team Sokka arrives to the airbase and boards the airship. They make it to the bridge where they capture the vessel. Sokka then comes up with an idea of how to get rid of the other crew members, by asking them to go to the bomb bay to celebrate a crew member's birthday. Katara tells him that it will never work, but is pleasantly surprised when it really is a crewmate's birthday and the plan succeeds. Iroh and the Order of the White Lotus manage to liberate Ba Sing Se from the Fire Nation, and Zuko confronts his father, choosing to wear clothes fit for an Agni Kai. Standing upon a rock pillar as his father lays waste to the earth in front of them, Zuko uses his own firebending to disable Ozai's ship and bring him down to their level. Ozai comes down to Zuko's location and begins to speak with him. He angrily accuses Zuko of murdering his sister, to which Zuko does not reply. Ozai tells him that it reminds him of himself when he was younger, to which Zuko denies in disgust. Ozai then goes on to tell him how ironic it was that Zuko spent so many years of his life hunting the Avatar and even killing him only to become him. Zuko reaffirms that he will stop his father's plans and informs him that just as Sozin's comet has increased Ozai's firebending, it has increased Zuko's as well. Ozai laughs at the thought that Zuko considers himself to be on Ozai's level. He then goes on to tell Zuko how this moment reminds him of the Agni Kai they had all those years ago when he banished Zuko. He tells him that at the time he planned to teach him respect when he scarred him for life, but mentions that it seems it didn't take, and that he would need a new scar to remind him to never stand against his father. Zuko dares him to try, and the two begin their battle. Back in the sky, Team Sokka use their airship to destroy the Armada by ramming it. Zuko and Ozai fight, but it's clear Ozai has the edge. Zuko has to continuously retreat from attacks, which Ozai mocks him for running away, and being just as much of a coward he was all those years ago. The battle escalates quickly, and Zuko finds he is no match for his father. His father tells him that he will teach Zuko respect through pain once more and drag him back to the Fire Nation, where he will torture him day and night until he learns to respect him. And only when Zuko is as cruel and unforgiving as Azula was when he will allow him to come out. Zuko says he'll die before he becomes like Azula, and Ozai decides to take that bluff and charges a lightning attack, sending it at Zuko to execute him. However, Zuko recalls the technique his uncle taught him and catches the lightning. It electrocutes his body with its sheer force, but he manages to redirect it to the tip of his finger. Looking into the eyes of his surprised father, who realizes the position he is in, Zuko knows he is about to kill the last surviving member of his immediate family. Zuko laments this, but knows it is the only thing he can do, and if he were to let this golden opportunity pass, Zuko would find himself dead, and Ozai would completely destroy the Earth Kingdom, and finally succeed in subjecting the world under the flag of the Fire Nation. Zuko closes his eyes and fires the lightning back at Ozai, striking him and killing him. Zuko, exhausted from his fight, falls over and passes out. The story skips to a few days later where Zuko is crowned as the new Fire Lord and declares an end to the 100-Year War. Once returning into the palace, he looks at a portrait of his family and seems completely upset that his family has died, but wonders if his mother remains out there somewhere, still exiled as he was, and hopes to find her. May appears behind him and the two reconcile. Sometime later, Team Sokka all meet up at Iroh's tea shop where they celebrate a toast to Aang, who even in death managed to inspire people and bring balance back to the world, fulfilling the Avatar's mandate to protect the balance. Stepping outside to watch the sunset, Iroh comes to him and talks to him about the big decision he had to make. He tells his nephew that it is unfortunate, but in that moment Zuko did not kill Ozai. Ozai killed himself with his own power. Zuko just stood as resistance. Zuko nods, but asks why it doesn't make him feel any better. Iroh replies with, "It's because you're still human." Iroh promises to stand with Zuko for as long as he is alive, offering wisdom, though he no longer thinks his nephew needs it. And the series closes. Despite Aang having died, it's not impossible to think the balance could still have been restored. However, this causes a lot of issues with balance in the future, as I said earlier. The idea of the Avatar no longer existing is heavy, and that means we'll have a lot of problems when the Legend of Korra comes about. That being said, maybe we'll cover that in the future. If you liked this video, be sure to click the thumbs up button below. Also subscribe if you haven't, and ring the bell to stay informed when new content arrives in the future. Peace out, friends, and always remember, Frederator loves you!